There are wounds that bleed, and then there are wounds that no one sees. Wounds that aren't wrapped in bandages, but are buried deep inside the soul. Wounds caused not by accidents, but by intention, by the very people you once trusted with your heart. These wounds don't just hurt, they humiliate. They whisper lies into your spirit. They tell you that you were too much, or maybe not enough. They make you question your worth, your value, your sanity. And what makes the pain unbearable is not just the act itself, but the absence of conscience in those who delivered the blow. They didn't flinch. They didn't apologize. They didn't lose sleep over your suffering. They wounded you without conscience. To them, your tears were entertainment. Your breakdowns were proof of their power. Your silence was a stage upon which they performed cruelty without remorse. And you were left to gather the shattered pieces of yourself in silence, convincing yourself to keep breathing through the agony. You may have screamed internally, "Why would they do this to me? What did I ever do to deserve this?" But here's a truth many overlook. Sometimes the worst pain comes not because you were wrong, but because you were right. Not because you were evil, but because you were pure. The darkness in others is often offended by your light. Let me ask you something. How many nights have you cried into your pillow, wondering if justice would ever find its way to you? How many times have you looked up at the sky and whispered, "God, did you see what they did to me?" And how often have you felt like the heavens were silent? But silence is not absence, and delay is not denial. What if I told you that God saw it all? Every wound, every betrayal, every dagger disguised as a smile. What if I told you that heaven has taken notes, and that life, in its mysterious orchestration, is preparing a response more powerful than your pain? You see, there's something sacred about pain when it's placed in God's hands. It transforms, it purifies, it becomes a seed. And while they thought they were destroying you, they were merely planting you. Planting you into the soil of divine justice, where your tears have been watering the very roots of a future they can never touch. There's a law written not by man but by the divine, that what is sown in cruelty will be reaped in consequence. And when a person wounds another without conscience, life itself begins to write a lesson so bitter that no one escapes its taste. God does not turn a blind eye to the suffering of the innocent, and those who inflict pain without mercy will, in time, receive the echo of their actions in ways they never imagined. But don't misunderstand. This isn't about revenge. This is about restoration. It's not about hoping for their downfall, but about trusting that God will not let evil prosper without accountability. So if you're still hurting, still wondering when it will be your turn to heal, hear this. God has begun a process, a quiet, divine unraveling. You may not see it yet, but it is already in motion. Life is preparing a mirror for those who wounded you, and when they look into it, they won't just see what they did, they will feel it. They will carry it. They will be wounded in the very place they once mocked your scars. And you will rise, not because they fall, but because God is lifting you. How heaven turns cruelty into consequence, and how your pain becomes their prophecy. Here are the 7 divine revelations that will unfold in time. Those who harm without conscience will be hunted by their own choices. There is a mysterious yet inescapable law that governs the soul of the universe. What one sends out returns in due time. And for those who hurt others without conscience, who injure hearts without hesitation, that return is not gentle. It waits, yes, but only long enough to let them feel secure in their cruelty. Then it arrives, not as thunder in the sky, but as a slow unraveling of everything they thought would last forever. When someone wounds another person without remorse, they believe they've won a silent battle. They walk away with pride, with laughter, with a sense of control. They mistake your silence for weakness, your kindness for foolishness, and your forgiveness for permission. But here's what they fail to understand. When they hurt you, they didn't just wound a person, they violated a divine law. And that law always collects its debt. At first, life seems normal for them. They smile, they post, they pretend to be victorious. But within, something begins to shift. Their peace begins to rot from the inside out. Why? Because every action born of evil plants a seed of unrest. Their choices, made with arrogance and indifference, become the very traps that circle back to ensnare them. You see, they thought they were above the laws that govern human hearts. They thought they could lie, manipulate, destroy, and walk away untouched. But the universe is not blind. God is not indifferent. There is an echo in the corridors of life that returns exactly what was whispered in the dark. When someone harms without conscience, they sign their own judgment with invisible ink. And when the time comes, it is read aloud by the very winds they once believed favored them. Their choices become shadows that follow them into every room. They start losing sleep. Their confidence slowly erodes. Relationships fall apart. The things they once valued begin to slip through their hands like water, and they don't understand why, but you do. Because long before their world crumbled, yours did, and God, who saw it all, began setting in motion a balance that could not be denied. And perhaps the most haunting part of their downfall is this: they won't even know when it began. There will be no dramatic crash, just a slow, quiet collapse of everything they took for granted. The love they laughed at will become their deepest longing. The peace they disrupted will become the one thing they cannot find. The life they bruised without blinking will reflect itself back at them in every mirror. No man or woman who harms others without conscience walks away blessed. They may flourish for a season, but it is a false spring, and when winter comes, it will come fast. Because God does not forget the tears of the innocent, nor does he overlook the arrogance of the cruel. Those who act without conscience are hunted not by others, but by the very choices they made. Every step forward becomes harder. Every door they open leads nowhere. Life once generous becomes a stranger. Why? Because they played with sacred things and assumed the cost would never find them. But it does. It always does. 2, they laughed at your tears. Now life will echo their mockery back to them. There's a special kind of cruelty in laughing at someone else's pain. It's not just unkind, it's inhuman. When someone cries out from the depth of betrayal, abandonment, or emotional devastation, and another finds humor in that suffering, they don't just reveal their character, they curse their own future. Because in the divine order of justice, mockery is never left unreturned. Life has a way of repeating the exact sound of laughter in reverse until it stings the one who laughed. If you've ever had someone look at your hurt and grin, if you've ever had someone twist your vulnerability into a joke or turn your sorrow into entertainment, then know this: that moment was not forgotten, not by heaven, not by life, not by the one who keeps account of every wounded soul. Your tears were not wasted. They were recorded, and the mockery you endured did not vanish into the air. It became a seed buried in their own future. Life doesn't forget the sound of a heart breaking, and it certainly doesn't ignore the sound of another mocking that break. There is a reckoning that waits, not out of revenge, but out of justice. And when it arrives, it does so quietly, elegantly. It lets them experience the very depths they once mocked in you. Their joy becomes hollow, their pride becomes poisoned. Suddenly, they're the ones seeking comfort in dark places. They're the ones feeling abandoned. And just when they reach out for empathy, the world gives them silence, the very silence they gave you. The jokes they made about your struggles will become the mirror in their own grief. They'll remember how they laughed, because the sound will play again, but this time from others. The circle always completes itself. And it's not just about personal guilt, it's about cosmic irony. Life has a poetic way of teaching lessons. The ones who mocked your loneliness will find themselves isolated. The ones who made fun of your breakdowns will have their own. The ones who exaggerated your flaws will be exposed in theirs, and when it happens, they won't be able to trace the source. But you'll know. You'll know that the mockery was not lost, it was simply delayed. What they laughed at in you was sacred. Your struggle, your heart, your sincerity, these are not things to mock. They are things to honor. And by treating your pain like a performance, they invited a performance of their own. Only now the stage is theirs, and no one is laughing. There is no laughter without consequence when it comes at the expense of the innocent. Because God defends the heart that was crushed, and life itself becomes a reflection, a divine mirror that never misses a single smirk, scoff, or sarcastic jab. The echo always returns, and when it does, it doesn't sound like laughter anymore. It sounds like regret. 3. God turns secret wounds into public breakthroughs. There is a realm of pain that is rarely acknowledged because it is suffered in silence. Not all wounds are visible, and not every heartbreak makes a sound. Some of the deepest injuries are the ones inflicted behind closed doors, in quiet betrayals, in lonely nights when no one sees the tears. These wounds, the ones you were too tired or too ashamed to speak about, were not invisible to God. While the world overlooked your silent suffering, heaven took notice, and God, in his divine design, has a way of turning the wounds that no one saw into the very breakthroughs everyone will witness. It is often in the darkest seasons of your life that God begins planting the seeds of your greatest transformation. The pain you carried was not wasted. It was woven into a process. God didn't cause your hurt, but he will use it. He didn't orchestrate the betrayal, but he will not let it go unanswered. Every secret wound you endured without revenge, every humiliation you swallowed in silence, every night you collapsed under the weight of invisible pain, these moments became sacred spaces where God began crafting your rise. And when God elevates you, he does not do it quietly. The same people who dismissed your suffering will be made to witness your restoration. That's not pride, it's divine justice. God often brings you out in the open not to boast, but to vindicate. He brings your victory into view because your pain was endured out of sight. The world saw your fall, but they will also see your resurrection. And when they ask how you made it through, your only answer will be grace. This is the paradox of divine justice. What was meant to break you becomes the very foundation of your strength. What was supposed to silence you becomes your loudest testimony. What was hidden in shame becomes public in triumph. And not because you forced your way forward, but because God lifted you in his timing. There are moments in life when God seems quiet. It feels like he's doing nothing. But beneath that stillness is the stirring of transformation. While they thought you were being crushed, God was reshaping you. While they believed they'd ended your story, God was writing the most powerful chapter yet. And now he will not just heal your wounds, he will use them as the very doorway into your purpose. So don't be surprised when your breakthrough is seen by many. It has to be, because the wound was felt in isolation, But the healing was always meant to be witnessed. God turns secret wounds into public breakthroughs, not to elevate ego, but to elevate His justice. And the ones who hurt you, who counted you out, who found satisfaction in your suffering, they will see. They will see that you were never abandoned. You were simply being prepared. And the beauty of it all, you won't even need to speak. Your life will do the talking. Your peace, your restoration, your glow, that will be the voice of heaven speaking for you. God is about to make what was private and painful into something public and powerful. And when it happens, it won't be revenge, it will be revelation. 4. Life will strike where they felt most untouchable. Those who wound others often walk away with a false sense of security. They believe they're untouchable, protected by their charm, their status, their manipulative control, or the silence of their victim. They move forward with arrogance, convinced that the damage they caused will never return to them. They build walls around their lives, imagining themselves safe from consequences. But the truth is this: no one is beyond the reach of life's justice. And when the reckoning comes, it strikes not where they expect it, but where they are most vulnerable. You see, God doesn't strike out of impulse or anger. He responds with precision. When someone causes harm with no conscience and walks away as if untouched, they invite a divine correction that is both surgical and poetic. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's quiet, it's deliberate, and it always lands exactly where it hurts most. Why? Because that's how life restores balance. The place they felt most secure, be it their relationships, their reputation, their influence, their inner peace, that is where life will deliver its blow. Not because God delights in suffering, but because He cannot allow arrogance to go unchecked. When someone believes they can repeatedly harm others without consequence, they elevate themselves above moral accountability. And that kind of pride always attracts a fall. It may not happen immediately. In fact, the delay often strengthens their delusion. But that delay is mercy. It's the space where they might have repented, where they could have turned back, apologized, healed. But when they double down on their cruelty and cloak it in silence, the delay becomes a setup. And when life finally answers, it answers with precision. One day they'll look around and notice that something is missing. The admiration they once enjoyed turns to suspicion. The relationships they relied on begin to crack. The things they once boasted about become burdens. They'll feel the walls closing in, not from external enemies, but from within. And the worst part? They won't know how to stop it, because the one thing they ignored, the pain they caused, has returned in a form they cannot deny. There is no fortress strong enough to shield a soul from the consequences of willful harm. The very ground they thought they ruled begins to crumble, and slowly they realize they're not untouchable. They're human. And the pain they dished out has learned their name, their address, and their weaknesses. This is not just about punishment, it's about awareness. When life strikes where they felt most untouchable, it's as if God is saying, now you will feel what you refused to see. And that sting is not just physical or material, it is spiritual. It shakes their foundation, not to destroy them, but to awaken them. But often, by the time they understand, it's too late. The damage is done. The wound is theirs now, and the silence they left you in becomes the echo chamber of their own suffering. God is not mocked, life does not forget, and those who walked away from your tears will one day feel their own, not in the same form, but in the same weight. Because when the wound is delivered by life, it never misses. It goes straight to the center of what they cherished most, and in that moment they'll understand They were never above justice, they just delayed it. What they call weakness in you, God will turn into strength against them. They mocked your tenderness. They rolled their eyes at your forgiveness. They dismissed your patience as passivity, your silence as fear, and your humility as weakness. They believed that because you didn't fight back, because you didn't curse them out or strike them where it hurt, you were soft, naive, or incapable. But what they never understood was that your restraint wasn't weakness. It was wisdom. It was strength wrapped in stillness. It was the kind of power that doesn't scream to be seen, but endures to be proven. And now, the very qualities they despised in you will become the tools God uses to elevate you and expose them. When someone causes pain, they often rely on the idea that their victim is powerless. They believe the quiet ones don't have defenders, that gentle hearts won't fight back, that pure souls will simply disappear. But they fail to realize that when God stands behind a wounded heart, that heart becomes invincible. It may look fragile, but it is guarded by heaven. And God always turns the tables, not through violence or vengeance, but through reversal. What they laughed at becomes what lifts you. What they stepped on becomes what stands you up. The strength that comes from endurance is unlike any other strength, because it's forged in silence, it's built in suffering, it's made in moments when nobody is watching. While they thrived on noise, you grew in shadows. While they danced in your downfall, you learned how to breathe in pain, how to walk with wounds, how to see in the dark. And now God will take that quiet power and put it on display, not for you to boast, but for the world to see what real strength looks like. And here's where it becomes bitterly ironic for them. The strength they dismissed is the very thing that will break them. Your endurance will outlast their ego. Your patience will unravel their plans. Your silence will shame their noise. They will be forced to witness that the one they once called weak is the one who never needed to harm anyone to win. You didn't fight dirty. You didn't repay evil with evil. You simply outlasted it. And now your character is a weapon, not against them, but against their illusions. Because strength isn't how loud you speak, it's how deeply you stand. It's not how fast you react, it's how much you can carry without breaking. You carried betrayal and didn't return it. You held pain without transferring it. You loved people who only used you, and still you remained whole. Maybe not on the outside, maybe not visibly, but internally you were growing muscle where they only saw scars. And now that muscle is ready. God is going to show them that the very qualities they tried to crush were never a flaw. They were the evidence of His hand on you. And He's going to use your gentleness to confront their harshness. He's going to use your silence to disturb their pride. He's going to use your ability to forgive as a mirror that shows them their inability to change. So don't hide your softness. Don't be ashamed of your tears. Don't regret the way you loved or the way you stayed kind, even when they didn't deserve it, because what they called weakness in you was actually the very trait that separated you from them. And now God will turn it into a strength so evident, so undeniable, that they will be left speechless, not because you rose in vengeance, but because you rose in grace. Every curse they spoke is a shovel in their own pit. Words have weight. They are not just sounds, they are seeds. Seeds that grow roots, that form trees that either bear fruit or poison. And when someone speaks curses over you, whether in gossip, in bitterness, or in hidden envy, they think their words vanish into the air. But heaven catches every one of them, And in time, those very curses become the tools of their own downfall. Every lie they whispered about you, every insult they casually threw behind your back, every hateful word they launched like a dagger, they were never just attacking your name, they were digging their own pit. There are people who use their tongues like weapons, slicing through reputations, stabbing at your peace, crafting narratives to make themselves feel higher by dragging you lower. And when you heard what they said, or maybe just felt the weight of what they were spreading, it hurt. Not just because of the content, but because it came from someone close. Someone who had access to your heart, your vulnerabilities, your story, and they used it to curse, not to cover, to shame, not to shield. But what they didn't understand was this: when someone curses the innocent, they are not damaging the target, they are damning themselves. Because God does not bless a mouth that destroys. He does not empower a heart that infects others. Every malicious word they spoke was a step closer to the pit they're now circling. And the irony? They were digging it with glee, believing they were building something powerful, only to discover they were constructing their own downfall. God is not passive about spoken curses. When someone tries to assassinate your character with lies, when they try to destroy your peace with rumors, when they curse your future with mockery, He takes it personally. He guards the reputation of His chosen. He protects the legacy of the innocent. And every time they spoke against you without repentance, another layer of dirt fell into their own trap. Their words were not arrows toward you, they were boomerangs, destined to return with multiplied force. You don't need to defend yourself with retaliation. You don't need to start shouting, proving, or pleading, because the same words they tried to weaponize will be the reason their world collapses, not because you said anything, but because life always turns spoken curses into consequences. One day they will watch doors close without reason. Relationships will collapse. Peace will escape them, and they won't understand why, but you will. Because long ago, in the name of pride or revenge, they spoke what should have never been spoken, and the echo has come back to claim them. So keep your peace. Hold your tongue. Speak life, not death, because the one who blesses in silence will be elevated in public, and the one who curses in secret will be exposed in time. Every curse they spoke became a shovel, and every time they repeated the lie, sharpened the insult, or laughed at your downfall, they dug deeper, not for you, but for themselves. And now the pit is ready. When God defends the innocent, no power can rescue the guilty. There is a point in every story of injustice when the tables turn, not by human hands, but by divine command. You may not know exactly when it will happen, but you will feel it. The weight begins to shift. The pain starts to lose its grip. The nights become a little less dark, and what once seemed like a never-ending season of suffering slowly transforms into something sacred. This is the moment when God steps in, not as a spectator, but as your defender. And when He defends the innocent, no amount of power, pride, or manipulation can rescue the guilty from what they sowed. Those who hurt others without conscience often believe they will never be held accountable. They place their confidence in status, in secrecy, in the silence of those they've harmed. They wear false innocence like armor and hope time will erase their actions. But there's one force they didn't account for, the justice of a God who never forgets, and when He rises to defend a wounded soul, there is no escape for the one who inflicted the wound. When God moves, He does not ask for permission. He does not consult the guilty or give them time to rearrange their lies. He moves with authority. He moves with perfect knowledge. He moves with timing that may feel delayed, but is always precise. And when He moves on behalf of someone who suffered in silence, The result is not just justice, it's a divine reversal. You may have cried alone, but you were never unseen. You may have been mocked and abandoned, but you were never truly alone. God was there, and the one who watched it all, every word, every wound, every betrayal, has chosen to respond. And when he does not merely heal the hurt, he makes sure those responsible face the mirror of their own actions. It will be subtle at first. The doors they once walked through easily will start to close. The favor they once enjoyed will begin to fade. The very things they used to harm you, be it their influence, their position, or their manipulation, will become useless. Because when God defends, he doesn't just block attacks. He reverses roles. He restores the wounded and humbles the arrogant. And in that divine exchange, the guilty cannot run. They cannot hide. No excuse, no justification, no performance will be able to cover what was done. And here's the most powerful part. When this happens, you won't have to lift a finger. You won't have to speak a word. Your vindication will come not through revenge, but through peace. A peace that makes no sense to the world, a peace that stands tall, even as life begins to discipline those who once wounded you. God will defend you not just for your sake, but for the sake of righteousness. Because when the innocent suffer, heaven takes it personally, and when heaven defends, no earthly force can resist. You were wounded without cause, without mercy, without conscience. They tore at your soul and walked away as if nothing had happened. But you did not stay broken. You did not become like them. You held on. You endured. You kept your heart soft when life gave you every reason to harden it. And for that, for your strength, your patience, your integrity, God is not just going to heal you, he's going to honor you. This is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a divine reversal. God is moving, life is shifting. The pain they inflicted will not go unanswered. The mockery, the betrayal, the silence, they will all be echoed back to them, not by your hands, but by the hand of God himself. And in that sacred moment, everything you endured will make sense. Every tear will be accounted for. Every scar will be redeemed. So rise, not with revenge in your heart, but with peace in your spirit. Because the one who saw it all is now acting on your behalf. They wounded you without conscience, but now God will let life wound them without mercy, and you will rise whole, watched, defended, restored. Would you like me to now prepare the SEO-friendly YouTube description, keywords and hashtags for this speech?